Skylar had once believed marriage was a partnership. She had imagined shared dreams, mutual respect, and quiet understanding, the kind that didn't need words. When she married Ethan, a rising businessman with ambition in his eyes and confidence in his walk, she believed she had found all of that. She was wrong. They worked in the same office, a mid-sized consulting firm Ethan had helped build from the ground up. On paper, Skylar was an employee like any other, efficient, intelligent, and dependable. In reality, she was much more than that. She handled client coordination, prepared strategy briefs, and smoothed conflicts before they ever reached Ethan's desk. But Ethan never acknowledged it. At home, he was distant. At work, he was cruel. The insults began subtly. "You're too slow," he would say in meetings. "Let someone capable handle this," he'd remark casually. "Don't embarrass me in front of clients." Skylar learned to stay quiet. She told herself it was temporary. That stress made people harsh. That success would soften him. That love buried somewhere would return. Instead, the cruelty grew. In private, Ethan barely spoke to her unless it was to criticize. In public, he treated her like an inconvenience and obligation he regretted. Colleagues noticed. Some pitied her. Others avoided her. No one intervened. Skylar still worked hard. She arrived early, left late, carried her dignity like a fragile glass, careful not to drop it. Even when her hands shook. Then came the business gathering. It was the firm's most important event of the era. High-profile dinner with investors, international partners, and influential clients. The hall glittered with polished floors, soft music, and expensive smiles. Skylar wore a simple navy dress, professional and understated. She stood slightly behind Ethan, as she always did. During dinner, conversations flowed. Deals were discussed. Laughter filled the air. Then someone asked Ethan, "Your wife works here too, right? She seems very involved." Ethan smiled. A strange smile. "Yes," he said loudly, raising his glass. "She takes care of things for me." Skylar felt her stomach tighten. Before she could react, Ethan added, chuckling, "She's practically my maid. Handles whatever I throw at her." Laughter erupted around the table. Some people laughed awkwardly. Some laughed genuinely. A few looked down at their plates. Skylar froze. The room blurred. The sound drained from her ears. She felt heat rush to her face. Then cold, sharp, and absolute. Every eye felt like a blade. Every second stretched. Her husband had not insulted her intelligence. He had erased her humanity. She stood there, a married woman, a professional, reduced to a joke for applause. Skylar wanted to scream, to cry, to run. She did none of those things. She smiled, a small, controlled smile. She placed her napkin down, excused herself quietly, and walked to the restroom with steady steps that hid the earthquake inside her chest. Inside the stall, her hands trembled. A reflection looked unfamiliar, eyes wide, lips pale. Dignity wounded but not dead. That was the moment something broke, and something else was born. She did not return to the table. She left the event early, without drama. Ethan did not notice until much later. That night, Skylar did not argue. She did not confront him. She did not ask why. She simply lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the laughter in her mind. By morning, her tears were gone. In their place was clarity. "I will never beg for respect again," she whispered to herself. "I will earn my freedom." Skylar did not plan revenge that day. She planned survival. And survival, she knew, is the first step toward power. The morning after the business gathering felt strangely calm. Skylar woke before dawn, not because she had slept well, but because sleep no longer came easily. Ethan lay beside her, breathing deeply, unbothered. The man who had humiliated her in front of an entire room slept like someone who had done nothing wrong. Skylar watched him for a moment, then she turned away at work. Nothing changed on the surface. Ethan spoke to her in the same clipped tone. Colleagues avoided eye contact. unsure how to treat her after what they had witnessed. No one apologized for laughing. No one defended her. Skylar understood then that silence was a choice, and she would no longer choose it. She began to observe. Not with bitterness, but with precision. She noticed how Ethan relied on her without realizing it. Client follow-ups, vendor negotiations, financial summaries, many of the firm's smooth operations passed through her hands. Ethan liked to take credit, but he never bothered to understand the details. Skylar had. She began saving copies of her work, emails, documents, project drafts. She organized everything carefully at home, building a quiet record of contribution and competence. She also began improving herself. After work, instead of going home early, she attended online courses, business analytics, contract law basics, negotiation strategy. She studied late into the night while Ethan watched television, unaware that the woman he mocked was sharpening her mind. At the office, Skylar changed subtly. She spoke less, but when she did, people listened. She stopped volunteering for meaningless tasks. She started asking questions that exposed weaknesses in plans, forcing others to think. Senior partners began to notice her calm intelligence. Ethan noticed too. "Don't overstep," he warned one evening. "Remember your place?" Skylar smiled politely. "I know my place." And she did. She had also begun reconnecting with an old friend, Maya, who worked in a competing firm. They met for coffee, spoke cautiously at first, then honestly. "You're wasting your talent," Maya said gently. "You could lead a team." Skylar felt something stir inside her. Maybe she could. At home, the marriage grew colder. Ethan barely acknowledged her presence unless he needed something. The distance hurt, but it also freed her. She no longer tried to earn affection that had been replaced by contempt. One evening, Skylar received an email from a client thanking her personally for resolving a complicated issue that Ethan had failed to handle. She read it twice, then she saved it. That night, she made a decision. She would not confront Ethan emotionally. She would outgrow him. Skylar began discreet conversations with senior partners. Presenting ideas, Ethan had dismissed ideas that saved money, improved efficiency, and impressed clients. She was careful, respectful, strategic. Opportunity did not knock. She built the door herself, and slowly, the office dynamics began to shift. People stopped seeing Skylar as Ethan's wife. They started seeing her as Skylar. Ethan felt it too, though he couldn't yet explain why. The balance was changing, and Skylar was no longer standing behind him by the time autumn arrived. Skylar had become someone Ethan no longer understood. She no longer rushed to respond to his demands. She no longer corrected his mistakes quietly behind closed doors. Instead, she let meetings unfold as they were meant to. Honestly, and honesty, Skylar had learned, could be devastating. The firm landed a major international deal, one that required careful coordination and flawless presentation. Ethan, eager to impress, took charge publicly. But behind the scenes, it was Skylar who prepared the financial models, risk assessments, and compliance strategies. This time, she made one critical change. She signed her work not loudly, not arrogantly, simply clearly. When the partners reviewed the proposal, questions arose. Ethan fumbled. He hadn't read the finer details. Skylar answered calmly, confidently, without looking at him. The room shifted for the first time. People noticed the gap between Ethan's confidence and his competence. After the meeting, a senior partner stopped Skylar in the hallway. "You should be leading these discussions," he said. Ethan overheard. That night, his anger exploded. "You're trying to humiliate me," he snapped. "After everything I've given you." Skylar met his eyes, steady and unafraid. "You humiliated me first." It was the first time she had said it aloud. Ethan laughed dismissively. "Don't pretend you're anything without me." Skylar said nothing, because by then she knew better. Over the next weeks, she was invited into strategic meetings Ethan wasn't included in. Clients requested her presence specifically. Her reputation grew not through gossip, but results. Ethan felt power slipping from his hands. Desperate, he made mistakes. Rushed decisions, risky promises. The same arrogance that once protected him now betrayed him. Skylar watched quietly. Then came the invitation. A prestigious firm reached out, pressed by her work on the international deal. They wanted her not as an assistant, not as a supporting role, but as a department lead. Skylar didn't answer immediately. She waited. At the firm's annual review meeting, partners discussed restructuring. Performance was evaluated. Contributions were acknowledged. When Skylar's name was mentioned, the room filled with approval. When Ethan's came up, the silence spoke volumes. The managing partner turned to Skylar. "It's great. We'd like to offer you a leadership role here." Ethan stared at her, stunned. Skylar stood slowly. "Thank you," she said, "but I've already accepted another offer." The words landed like thunder. She turned toward Ethan, not with anger, not with triumph, but with calm finality. "I was never your maid," she said. "I was your equal. You just couldn't see it." Ethan said nothing. For the first time, he had no words. Skylar walked out of the room, her head high, dignity fully reclaimed. Revenge, she realized, didn't need cruelty. It only needed truth and the courage to walk away. Skylar's new office overlooked the city. Sunlight poured through wide glass windows, illuminating a desk that belonged to her alone. No one questioned her presence. No one reduced her worth with jokes or cruelty. She had earned her place not by marriage, not by tolerance, but by merit. The silence in that room felt different. It felt free at her old firm. The impact of her departure was immediate. Projects she had managed began to falter. Clients asked for her by name. Emails went unanswered. Deadlines slipped. Ethan tried to fill the gaps. He failed. Without Skylar quietly stabilizing his chaos, his weaknesses became visible. Partners questioned his leadership. Investors grew cautious. His confidence, once unshakable, now sounded hollow. At home, the marriage collapsed under the weight of truth. Ethan came home late, irritable, defensive. One night, he confronted her. "You planned this," he accused. "You waited until I needed you most." Skylar looked at him calmly. "No," she said. "You pushed me away until I realized I didn't need you at all." She packed her bags the next morning. No shouting, no pleading, no revenge speeches, just departure. The divorce was quiet but decisive. Skylar asked for nothing except what was fair. Ethan, stripped of pride, had no strength left to fight. Months later, Skylar stood on a stage at a leadership conference, invited as a speaker. She spoke about resilience, self-respect, and the danger of underestimating people who work silently. The audience listened, somewhere in the crowd. Ethan sat anonymously, unseen, forgotten. He watched the woman he had once called a maid command a room with. Dignity and grace. She never looked at him. She didn't need to. Skylar's revenge was complete. Not because Ethan suffered, but because she rose. She had turned humiliation into independence, insult into authority, silence into strength. That was the most powerful answer of all.